I've got my little puppy wanting attention.
Gotta love puppies.
Yep. As my wife says, I'm her person.
There you go. Hello everybody, welcome to episode number 29 of Coffee Time with Byron and Brett. I am your host Byron. My co-host couldn't be here unfortunately, but I'm glad to have on longtime announcer, and found out today he's an author. I never knew that, but now I might want to I actually want to read his books. Steve Physioc, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Byron. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Definitely. I'm glad you took some time out of your busy schedule to come on, because I know you're a busy person with your announcing duties.
It is every single night of the week, doing Major League Baseball, and I've done it for 35 years, but I've got a great organization to work for in the Kansas City Royals, and I do a little TV, mainly radio, and a lot of writing lately.
Yeah, let's start up on that. Began the interview off that. Your books that you're telling me about. I think you said 3 of them, correct? That you've
Yes.
had. Tell us a little about all them 3.
Well, some guys, when they get older, they take up hobbies like golf or tennis or whatever, sailing. Well, for me, it was writing, and it just happened in 2006 when my wife and I were vacationing in Italy. Mm-hmm. And I actually, this is no joke, I had a vivid dream. We were staying in a bed and breakfast in southern Tuscany, and I dreamt about this great walled city and 2 families struggling to produce a great Sangiovese wine. And instead of going back to sleep, I got up, went to the other room, wrote down the outline. It took me 10 minutes to write down a little outline of what my dream was about. And then the next day, I told my wife about my dream, and she says, that's really cool. And we went and we toured Florence and Venice, and we were meeting 4 other couples a week later in a town of Luca, Italy. Mm-hmm. And as we're driving into this great walled city, I said, oh my gosh, Stacy, this is it. This was the great walled city that was in my dream. Well, now, of course, I'm interested, so I buy a book about the history of Luca, Italy, and it was a fascinating town. At one time, the number 2 banking capital in all of Europe. It was at the end of the silk trade, and obviously it was a town that had a lot of money, but it had a lot of pressure from outsiders. So what happens when you have this fear that someone's going to take your money? You build these walls. And Luca, Italy built 3 walls: the pre-Christian walls, the medieval walls, and the Renaissance walls. Interestingly enough, they spent millions of lira over 2,000 years, and these walls were never militarily tested. Mm-hmm. And they ring the city. They're beautiful walls. And I just thought, in my psychobabble in my mind, I thought, do we do that as human beings? Do we build these invisible walls around us even when no one is attacking us? And so basically what I did was I developed a fictional story. 2 families trying to produce a great Sangiovese wine in Italy's dark days of World War I, the rise of fascism, and Benito Mussolini. And it is a historical fiction / romance. It's a love story with historical fiction involved. And book 1, which is The Walls of Luca, right here, it takes place from 1914 to 1930. Mm-hmm. And then book 2, Above the Walls, picks up in 1938 after Mussolini writes his Manifesto of Race, solidifying his union with Adolf Hitler, and how it affected the agricultural workers, the vineyard operators, and the citizens of Italy. It, too, is a love story / historical fiction, but both books were honored by readers' favorites as The Walls of Luca as the 1918 Best Historical Fiction. I won the gold medal in that a year, and then in 2019, we won for Best Historical Fiction Above the Walls, the sequel. And then, of course, the 3rd book that I've written is totally different. it does have to do with baseball, because baseball is a passion. It is a love of mine.
Yep.
And I've always been fascinated about pitchers. They're on the mound. They're alone. And the guys that I have seen had the most success are the guys that can handle that pressure alone. And so I took a character, and in this case, a young man by the name of Sam Cloud Carson, who comes from the Southern Ute tribe in southwest Colorado, and he has two incredible gifts. He's a great baseball player, a pitcher, and he's also a brilliant wildlife tracker. He works for his family's outfitting company. And if you think about those two professions, it takes a unique gift where you have to be alone. And this is a young man who succeeds dramatically when he is alone, but struggles when he is with others. And that is the challenge that he faces. And he faces many difficulties, and he also faces an antagonist by the name of Drake Dixon, who owns a private military company and does security work over in Afghanistan, and comes up with this plan to use wildlife trackers to track for his security teams to find trouble spots before they hit. And you have the one quest of this young man, Sam Cloud Carson, who wants to play Major League Baseball, and the antagonist who wants him to track for him over in Afghanistan. So the trials and tribulations of what take place. So it's not only a vision quest story, a baseball story, but it's also got political intrigue. It also has action adventure. It has highs and lows. It has tragedy, love story, and it's got many layers. And it too has been well reviewed. We've received 5-star reviews from reader favorites, reader views, and also Union Square book reviews. And so we're very proud of that. And right now I'm finishing up the sequel, which will be released before spring training next year.
You got me interested. I don't read much like I used to, but you got me interested. That's amazing. So then I gotta ask you, out of all the books you've written so far, what would you say was the most difficult to come up with in your head?
I think it was making the transition. As you might imagine, a play-by-play announcer, and I've done football, basketball, and baseball for 45 years, so I was already a storyteller in one genre. But when I was on the road, I'm one of those people, I always had a novel with me, and it might be Ernest Hemingway, it might be John Steinbeck. I like to read classics. I didn't want to just read about football, basketball, baseball, and so I was fascinated by great writing. And so the greatest challenge that you might think was just doing it for the first time. And Byron, when I started, I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and then I gave it to my mom, and she goes, "This is terrible." And she was right. And what happened was, my computer at the time, I had written 100 pages, my computer froze up, and I lost everything. And my wife was devastated, and I said, "No, honey, it was awful." So when I started writing again, I remembered the good stuff and forgot the garbage that I had written. And so it took me 12 years to write, because I wasn't a writer at first. But I had friends who wrote, and I also was a reader. So I would get it to a level, and then to another level, and then edit to another level. And an author friend of mine said, "Steve, this is now good enough to give it to a developmental editor," which I did. And I found this developmental editor in Columbia, South Carolina. Her name is Nicole Ayers. She's brilliant. She's the president of Ayers Edits, and she tore it apart. And she gave it back to me. She goes, "I think this has potential." Well, I followed every single criticism that she made, and I redid everything. And she said, "Steve, okay, let's get it out there." And then what you do is you reach out, you query to publishers, to agents, etc. Well, I struggled with that, so I decided I'm going to publish it myself, and so I did through Amazon, and we've had success. We've had over 150,000 downloads, which is pretty good for a first-time author, and it wasn't in my profession, because I was writing about historical fiction, 2 books about Italy, and this book has more to do with baseball, so I think it does draw in that baseball audience. So I've been blessed to have good reviews. I didn't expect them at all, but I've been excited about that, and I think my writing has gotten better, as you'll find out in Walks with the Wind.
Now, obviously, I know the pay is different because you're under contract with the Royals and other announcing jobs you've had. Now, how do you get paid being an author? Does it get through how many downloads and buys you have on Amazon? Or how do you see those checks mainly?
Well, it's all done electronically, and what I do is I get paid per ebook, and the ebooks are $3.99. The physical books, some people still want the physical books, and those are like $17.99 or $18.99. But most of the downloads I get are with the ebooks. But also with Amazon, one of the really cool things you have if you go through Amazon is you have page turns, much like a radio station. If they play a Taylor Swift song on a local radio station, she gets a small increment because they played her music. Well, the same thing is true with an author. Because with Amazon, if you're Amazon Prime, you get books for free. Well, how does that help the author? So how it helps the author is every time a reader turns a page, I get a small percentage of the page turn. So I can check every single day on how many books I've sold, whether they're paperback books, whether they're ebooks, or how many page turns I have. So it is still a hobby right now. It's a hobby I'm really enjoying, but my number one profession is still broadcasting Major League Baseball, and I still love doing that, and I love the team I'm broadcasting, the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, now that you got me interested in the books, let's get on to your broadcasting career as well. I see you started out early on in your career with a station with the likes alongside of Jerry Springer. Did you know he was at that station when you were there? And did you know he was going to be just as big as you are as announcing?
He wasn't the Jerry Springer that he is today. And I mean, my career path was much different. I went to Kansas State University, which was not a broadcast school, but I majored in radio and TV. That's where I fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. And I knew that when I graduated, I needed to start small. So I started in a small town, Hastings, Nebraska, and they allowed me to do a ton of football, basketball, baseball, boxing, volleyball games in a 2-year period. And then I figured, okay, I'll graduate, move to a bigger market, Topeka, Kansas, 4 years there. And then Cincinnati hired me in 1983, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, 83. Yep, 83.
83 or 82, I can't remember. And they put a new team together. And Jerry Springer had been the mayor of Cincinnati, but he was also doing nightly commentaries at the end of the television show on WLWT. Mm-hmm. But when I got there, they decided to put 4 people together. Jerry Springer as the main anchor, along with his co-anchor, Norma Rashid, myself as the sports anchor, and Pat Berry as the weather forecaster. Well, at the time, we were 3rd in the ratings, which is last in the ratings in Cincinnati, and because it was Jerry Springer mainly, but this team of 4 years later, we were number 1 in the marketplace. But to answer your question about Jerry, he was one of the funniest and smartest men I still to this day have ever met. And when we would go out for dinner after a show, we would sit and I would be fascinated by his talks about whether it was politics, whether it was about how to treat people, whether it was about the legal system. And I knew he was going places because he was a really sharp guy and very friendly, very funny, very engaging. And sure enough, and also his editorials at the end of the show, he did one every single night, were so thoughtful and oftentimes inspiring. And I was blessed to work with him and know him for 4 years. I was a little disappointed the avenue he took with his show.
I agree.
As he told me later, he made a ton of money and he did quite well. But when you get right down to it, really good person and one of the funniest guys I've ever met.
That's what I've heard before too, because another guy too that worked under him, Steve Wilco, said the same thing about him, that he's kind and generous. It's just shocking he would help so many people get their careers going, and is such a good guy. But then when you watch what his show has become into, it's like, dude, is this really for you? Is this like really you? Was like, what the heck is going on here?
Well, I understand that. but in his heart, he is a giver. And I'm talking about on environmental issues. You should hear the talks he gives on environmental issues, on just how to treat people, on politics, on being fair, on just being thoughtful, on generosity, and he is all of those things. Now, on his show, I think what led him in that direction was money.
Yeah.
I mean, he's making a ton of money on the Jerry Springer show. And at the end of every single show, from what I understand, I really have never watched
I never have
all
either,
the way through.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Same.
And he knows that, but there are some who do. And quite frankly, I don't have that much time because, as you might imagine, my job is staring at a television set, even more so now during COVID, because on the road, I'm doing the broadcast off of the television. But Jerry Springer, terrific guy, love him to this day. And he was there when I met my wife, Stacy, in Cincinnati. She worked at the local sports station, Sports Time Cable Network. And so my wife of 35 years, so I have so many great memories of Cincinnati and working alongside very talented people, including Jerry, Norma Rashid, and Pat Barry.
So then after there, you left there in '87 after you got done calling the Bengals and the Reds games. You then went off to San Francisco where you did their games alongside the ESPN. What do you remember about working with working with the Giants and then going to ESPN?
Well, it happened so fast because when I left Cincinnati, I would have stayed, but they wanted me to just do the sportscast at night, and I wanted to do play-by-play. Mm-hmm. And I was blessed to be recently married, and my wife and I just had recently adopted our first daughter. And I came home, and I would have done exactly what she told me to do, but she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to do play-by-play." And she said, "Well, then that's what we have to do because I don't want to live with an unhappy man." And that lifted a huge rock off me. And I just so happened to have a gentleman, a friend of mine, Roger Blaemeyer, who had hired me to do the Reds games, but now is in San Francisco as the broadcast supervisor for the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. And he had shown my tape to a fellow at KTVU, Kevin O'Brien. And O'Brien said, "Hey, I like this kid. If he'd like to come out here, I'll give him work one day a week." So we went on that prayer. And sometimes in life you have to, I call them let go, let God moments, where you have to have total faith that what you're doing is the right thing. And I left a job opportunity in Cincinnati that was going to pay me six figures to take a job that was going to pay me $150 a show per week. So I was only going to work one day a week. And my wife and I went out there. Interestingly, how miracles happen. My little brother is a produce salesman, and he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I've got a truckload of lettuce that I'm dropping off in New York City. I have an empty load coming back. I can swoop by Cincinnati, pick up your furniture, and take it out to the Bay Area." And I go, "Done." So my wife and I drove behind a pickup truck that dropped our furniture off in a little apartment in Danville, California. And it's amazing how everything unrolled perfectly for me. Now, Stacy and I, my wife and I, look back and we go, were we out of our minds? We were crazy to do this. We were going to one of the most expensive places to live in the world for a promise of one day a week. Well, obviously, I hustled. So I called a radio station, volunteered for vacation relief. I did that. I would go on days that I wasn't getting paid at KTVU to work on a story. And the boss saw me hustling. And another story is, a couple of months into this job at KTVU, and I'm just working one day a week, I get a call from my friend who works for the Golden State Warriors, and he said, "Hey, Steve, Fresno State is looking for a football, basketball announcer for their TV games. Mm-hmm. Give them a call." So I called them up, and they said, "It's already been filled." I said, "Oh, really? I was told the position's open." My buddy calls me 2 weeks later, and I say, "Yeah, they say it's been filled." They go, "It hasn't been filled. Call somebody else." So I called their sports information director, Scott Johnson, and I said, hey, my name is Steve Physioc. I applied for a job. And he goes, yeah, Steve, we saw your resume. On it is the NFL and Major League Baseball. We can't afford that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I will get in my car right now and I will drive down to Fresno and meet you, and I will accept any offer you put on the table. And he goes, you will do that? And he said, yeah. And I said, yeah. And the next morning I drove down, had lunch with them. They made an offer, and I all of a sudden was doing football and basketball games for Fresno State. 1 month after that, my boss at KTVU calls me in, and he goes, I like your work, and I would like to put you on the Giants games. This was 1987. The Giants were playing great. Mm-hmm. Well, I joined the broadcast team in 1987 to work with Dwayne Kuiper and Ron Fairley and Wayne Hagan, and all of a sudden, I'm the outsider coming in right in the middle. Well, the team takes off. They win the National League West, and I'm part of the broadcast team. When the season ends, Kevin O'Brien fires the sports director, names me sports director, names me one of the broadcasters for the Giants, and it was like everything snowballed towards me. But as you know, Byron, in this world, sometimes you're shocked when you get hired, and sometimes you're shocked when you get fired. And I didn't necessarily get fired, but 2 years later, ESPN and the Golden State Warriors came after me and said, we'd like to hire you. And I was in the middle of a contract. Mm-hmm. And I was moonlighting because my boss had agreed to allow me to moonlight before he hired me. I was doing Fresno State. I was doing some ESPN games. And he called me and he said, Steve, I can't have you all over the place. Turn on our station, and there you are Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I see you on ESPN. You need to figure out what you want to do. And I said, I want to do play-by-play. And I need to tell you that I have an offer from ESPN and another from the Golden State Warriors. And he goes, can I make a call for you? And Kevin actually helped me get those jobs. And so all of a sudden I was doing all the things that I wanted to do, just play-by-play. I was doing Golden State Warriors radio play-by-play. I was doing ESPN, Major League Baseball, college football, college basketball. And I was working pretty much 7 days a week. But we had gone from nothing to something. And so I was with ESPN for 7 years, and then in 1996, Fox came after me, and I joined Fox doing college football and basketball out on the West Coast, doing the Pac-10, now Pac-12 games, football and basketball, and also Major League Baseball for the Angels.
Yeah, I see you also did some work for my Padres. How was it doing in that season when you did for my Padres? Because that was the era of Tony Gwynn. And that's what he was the main reason why I'm a Padre fan to this day.
Well, it was interesting because that year in 1995, that was a year I was still doing ESPN, but the Padres had a 25-game package. But what I didn't know was that the boss who had hired me to do those games was actually wanting to see if I would work together with this crew well enough to do the Angel games in 1996. I didn't know that until I was hired to do the games in 1996. And I did the Padres games, but it was only 25. But I did get a chance to meet and know Tony Gwynn, who to this day is one of my favorite players of all time. But I also had been introduced to Tony because I was doing ESPN games. And all I can tell you is his work ethic was off the charts. I remember seeing him I got to the ballpark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he was down in right field, and he was taking balls off the right field foul wall. And I was thinking, what is he doing? So I went down and I said, Tony, you're at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and all you're doing is I saw you taking 20 balls off of the foul area. And he said, Fizz, last time we were here on this homestand, I misplayed a ball down the right field line. It was fair past first base. It glanced off our Jack Murphy Stadium foul territory, and I misplayed it. So I wanted to make sure I had every single deflection ricochet off that wall down so I could memorize where it was. And that was the detail that was Tony Gwynn. And even before, nowadays you can have it on a computer, but back then he would ask the video operator to take videotape and have all 4 of his at-bats left on his clubhouse locker seat. And before the game, after the game would end, he would watch all 4 at-bats. And then he said, I want you to leave a great swing from any game. I want to be able to visualize that when I drive home to be with my family, to visualize a really good Tony Gwynn swing. So he was so detailed, so thoughtful, and so able to articulate his thoughts. I thought he was almost like a professor of baseball, but a delight to work with. Unfortunately, San Diego's still looking for a championship. Yeah. Maybe they'll get it this year because they're really good.
They are really good. I'm hoping. I mean, at Tatis, he's going to be better than his daddy, I say. And I don't care.
And Eric Hosmer, too. Eric Hosmer is a leader.
Ozzy,
he helped us win a championship.
They can't get rid of Ozzy. I know his contract's almost up in a couple years. They need to do whatever it takes to keep him. He's only got I think 2 more years left.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought he had a longer contract, but
he signed 4 years with us.
Oh, I thought it was a little longer than that. But I'm probably wrong. Okay. But he's a terrific, he's a warrior, he's a leader.
Oh, yes, he is.
And he doesn't try, he just is.
Oh, yeah. I could tell the leadership every time he's out there on the field. I mean, they need that, along with their young pitching staff, their young core. They need a veteran presence like him. I mean, without him, I think they'd be dead last in the division, to be honest.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And that rivalry is between the Dodgers and the Padres. They actually need that. Baseball, in the game of baseball, I think you can agree with me, needs rivalries like that. Because mainly you see rivalries on the East Coast with the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox. But that's
absolutely.
it. You don't see them promoting West Coast teams.
Where's my sensor?
So.
No, you're right.
Yeah. So, what do you think the game? Do you think this is helping the game, or do you think it is going to ultimately hurt the game because a lot of people can't see the West Coast games, unlike me, who I can subscribe to MLB.TV, and watch them. But how do you think that's going to turn out?
I think there are so many avenues now to watch Major League Baseball, and whether it's on your computer, whether it's your baseball app, whether it's just like you said, MLB.com, you can pretty much get any ball game you want. I'm there every single day. So one of the cool things that I have is when I drive home, I can turn on Sirius Radio and I can listen to all my friends. Mm-hmm. I can listen to Dwayne Kuiper and Mike Krukow and John Miller for the San Francisco Giants. Right. I can listen to Ken Korak with the Oakland A's. I can listen to Rick Riz with the Seattle Mariners, Gooby and the guys with the Angels and Mark Langston. So I'm able to listen to all my friends, and there's so many ways and avenues to get Major League Baseball with the streaming service. In the old days, when I was growing up, you just had the Saturday afternoon game of the week, and if you had your local games, a lot of times those were only 30 to 40 games. And now we broadcast all 162 Royals games on Valley Sports Kansas City. So I think the whole key is to make our game more exciting. And I think we have done a disservice by, I hate to say this, by juicing the baseball, because
Agreed.
It has fallen into a lot of strikeouts, a lot of walks, a lot of foul balls, and a lot of home runs. Last year, 36% of all at-bats ended with a walk, a strikeout, or a home run. We need more action in the game, and the Royals, I think, are a team that does bring that back up. We do have a running team. We will never lead the league in power because we have too big of a ballpark. So if we can do the little things, if we can throw strikes, if we can defend, if we've got a really good bullpen, if we can draft good pitching and develop good pitching, we're going to have a return to our glory days like we had in 14 and 15 when we went to back-to-back World Series and won it, of course, in 2015. And that was, believe me, an exciting team that threw strikes, that caught the baseball, that ran the bases, that went first to third on a single, that went first to home on a double, that went second to home on a single. They were really good and an exciting team, and we heard it from fellow broadcasters whenever we'd come into town.
I'm actually glad you brought that, because I was going to bring that to your attention. I will, no matter what, I will always be a baseball fan, always have, because I couldn't play it. But seeing it throughout because I was born obviously in 91, I lived through the steroid era, and now to this era of hitting the long ball, strikeouts, walk. Honestly, I don't like it. I mean, I want small ball. That's what I grew up on originally. Even in the steroid era, there was still small ball going on, and now it's just boring. It's boring to see because there's so many strikeouts.
Well, we just had 3 games in Tampa. 2 of them were incredibly exciting, but all 3 of them lasted under 3 hours. And I think that's a key. When I watch a game, 2 hours and 30 minutes to 2:45 is almost a perfect baseball game.
That's perfect.
Because you have pitchers who are throwing strikes. That means you're playing great defense. To me, I'd much prefer a 4-3, 3-2 baseball game than an 11-8 game. An 11-8 means bad pitching, bad defense. But I wouldn't mind seeing a pitch clock for the pitcher. I would also like to see, much like they have in the minor leagues in college baseball, keep 1 foot in the batter's box, get back in there, not all this tugging on your batting gloves. Give them 15 seconds to get right back in there. I'm sorry, move the game along. And for the umpires, in my opinion, only the umpires determine the speed of the game. I would like to see the umpires change their energy, clap their hands and say, come on, guys, let's move it. Get in the box, pitcher. Communicate with them. When I did the NBA, my favorite official was Jake O'Donnell because he talked all the time. And when I was a broadcaster, you'd be right down on the floor, and Jake might be going, Kareem, you're in the lane too long. You're in the lane too long. And then when he blew the whistle, he said, 3-second violation. What did I tell you? Or he might say, Magic, get your hands off, get your hands off. And then he'd call a foul. But he'd be talking with the guys, so the guys were engaged. And so when a foul or a situation was called, he had already warned them. He had already been engaged. It was part of the game. And I think umpires need to take control of the game, and they also have to call a strike a strike. The strike zone should be from the bottom of the letters to the bottom cup of the knee. Call it. And the more strikes you call, the more determined the batters are going to be to swing the bat. I also am interested in this independent league where the bases are just an inch bigger, which means it will encourage base running. I'm still not sure about the step-off rule. I've just got to think more about that. But I also would like to see 2 infielders on the right, 2 on the left, and they have to be in the dirt. Not all of this shifting all over the field. I don't like it. I think it discourages good hitting.
It does.
You mentioned Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was a singles doubles hitter. He happened upon a home run occasionally. Now we have guys with this launch angle and exit velocity. They're addicted to that.
It's like all they care about.
A lot of strikeouts and a lot of home runs. And to me, that leads to boring baseball. But I'm a purist. I love the old game. I still love every game. But those are some changes I'd like to see.
Now, you spent your longest time with the Angels, as you were saying, alongside Rex Hudler. Now, what moments do you have that you remember and most and cherish the most with calling Angels games?
I have known Rex for 25, 26 years because when he was a player in 1996, he had his best year as an Angel, hit over 300, had a bunch of home runs and a bunch of stolen bases, and he was delightful to work with. That team, I think, lost 95 games, but the one guy we could always go to who would say, yeah, I'll talk to you, was Rex Hudler. And then when we started working together, I became a huge fan, and not just because he's a terrific broadcaster, but because of the person he is. And I'll give you an example. I was called by my little brother to tell me about a young man who he and his wife just gave birth to their first child, and they found out that the child has Down syndrome. Mm. And my brother was wondering if Rex might call them. Well, Rex and Jennifer had a child 22 years ago, Cade, their first boy, and he had Down syndrome. Mm. And they have been such an inspiration to the Down syndrome community. They have a program called Team Up for Down Syndrome. It has raised millions of dollars in over the past 25 years to help people who need help in with their families, with their children. And just the person he is, the giving, the charitable soul that he is, that's what I like almost more. I actually do like more than working with him as a baseball announcer. I just like the man he is. He and his wife, Jennifer, are true lights in the world and truly good people. So our relationship goes back many years, but it's both a love of baseball and a love of humanity.
That's awesome to hear. That's great to hear. I know I'm trying to get a hold of him because I watched a little bit of his career before he retired. I actually liked watching him play, so I've been trying to get him on. I know he's busy, and he's busy a lot, so I'm hoping one day he'll be on to share his stories. I would love to have him on. Yeah, he's just a great guy, and he seemed like it. Every time I saw him play, he was doing something, giving out autographs to the fans, talking to the fans. Real genuine guy, and definitely would love to have him on sometime. But do you have...
Yeah, as he says, he's a fountain, not a drain.
Exactly.
That's his quote.
Yep. Yep. Do you have any moments...
Makes people feel good.
That's right. Do you have any favorite moments calling games for the Angels throughout your years? Did you have any special moments?
Oh, absolutely. You know, particularly with Rex, we saw the climb. When Rex was there, he was there in 1996, but then with the Phillies in 97, 98, and then his career ended, and then the Angels wanted us to work together. Mm-hmm. So he joined me in 1999, and we worked together all the way until we left the team after 2009. We were let go. But I was there for 14 years. He was there for 11 years, so we worked 11 years together there. And this is our 10th year working together with the Kansas City Royals, mm-hmm. because he's with me here again. And, you know, when you see a team climb up, much like we saw the Royals climb when we arrived here, we knew they were good and they're getting better. But they were really struggling in the late 90s. And when Mike Scioscia took over and Bill Stone was the general manager, Disney owned the team. Well, Disney didn't know anything about baseball, so they just said, here's the money, don't ask us for more, you run the show. So you had baseball guys running the baseball organization, and Bill Stoneman and Mike Scioscia wanted to build a team that was based on pitching and defense and base running. And they did. And sure enough, in 2002, that team came together with Darren Erstad and Garrett Anderson and Tim Salmon, Scott Spezio and David Eckstein and Benji Molina, and pitching like John Lackey and Francisco Rodriguez and Troy Percival. They were much like the Royals of 2014-15. Good, not great starting pitching, unbelievably great bullpen, and the best base running and the best defense in the game. And they won a world championship. Mm. And the same thing held true for the Royals. They had decent starting pitching. They had a ridiculous bullpen led by Wade Davis and Greg Holland, Luke Hochaver and Kelvin Herrera and Brian Madsen, and on and on. It was like if the game got to the fifth inning, just past the fifth inning, and the Royals had a tie game or a lead, it was over. Because all the Royals had to do was get one more run, and their bullpen was going to shut them out for 3 or 4 innings. They were that good, and obviously they led us to a championship and back-to-back World Series, which was really, really cool. And now we're doing the same thing again. I think we've got one of the best general managers in the game in Dayton Moore. He knows we're a small market team. He knows we were going to lose some guys to free agency. We lost Hosmer and Moustakis, and had to trade some guys away. And Lorenzo
Gordon retired.
Yeah, and so what happened was we lost too many of those free agents at the same time. So we struggled in 18 and 19 and lost over 100 games. But because of that, we were able to get first-round picks, a lot of them. And now we're building up with a pitching staff of that 2018 draft was fantastic for us with Brady Singer and Chris Bubich and Jackson Kowar and Daniel Lynch and Jonathan Bolin. And then in 19, we drafted Asa Lacey. No, I'm sorry, he was in 2020. But John Heasley was part of the 18 draft. Alec Marsh, really dynamic young pitcher from Arizona State. And then Asa Lacey was our first-round pick in 2020, and he was the best left-handed pitcher in college baseball. So we have this group coming up, and what they're trying to do is tie them together with the Bobby Witts and the Nick Prados and the MJ Melendezes of the world, and where these young men win championships at A-ball, at AA, at AAA, and eventually win at the major league level.
Now you get to see him for 162 games out of the year. Tell me a little about Raul Mondesi Jr. Is he as hardworking as his daddy, and do you think he'll be as bigger than his dad?
If he can stay healthy, he's better than his father, because he's faster than his father. He has all the tools. He has the 5 tools: great arm, great speed, great bat speed. The power, and but he has been unable to stay healthy. We just got him off the injured list just 2 days ago. In the first game, he got 2 doubles. In the second game, he had a single that was over 100 miles an hour. And if he improves in his strike zones discipline, like he showed last September where he was off the charts, he's going to be an all-star. So you talk about a team that is strong up the middle. We were strong up the middle in 2014 and 15, and now you're talking about Salvador Perez, 5 Gold Gloves. You're talking Nicky Lopez, one of the Gold Glove finalists. He's their second baseman now. Mondesi is a Gold Glove candidate, and Michael Taylor is a Gold Glove candidate in center field. So you're strong up the middle. You've got this young pitching that may not be ready yet, but they're improving. They're cutting their teeth. They're making mistakes. They're learning from mistakes. They're driven. And we've got a good team. And I think we can shake things up this year. I'm not sure if we're going to be as good as the Chicago White Sox or even the Cleveland Indians this year, but I think we could finish third and even make a push towards the playoffs. But I think our true success is going to probably come next year.
Yeah, tell us a little about your division. You got a tough division there. It's a who's who. You got White Sox, you got Indians, you got Twins who aren't doing well, and you guys. I mean, it's a who's division. Anybody can grab it. I mean, nobody's really.
From what I'm seeing, I don't know if you've seen the Chicago White Sox. I think they might be the best team in the American League.
You do.
I say that because I am big on pitching, and the Chicago White Sox can run some starters out there. Lucas Giolito, Carlos Rodon, Dallas Keuchel, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease. Those are 5 quality starters. Big arms as well. And their bullpen, it seems like every single arm they bring out of their bullpen throws 98 miles an hour. So I think the Chicago White Sox are the team to beat. That's just my opinion, because I always go pitching first. And then you've got the Cleveland Indians with a guy like Shane Bieber, who almost threw a no-hitter today and struck out 12 batters. Yeah. But Zach Plesac's on the injured list. Tristan McKenzie was just sent down. So they've got some question marks. Minnesota has been a shock to me.
Oh, really? I thought they would do better.
I thought they were really going to be good. Mm-hmm. But it's their pitching that has struggled this year, and a lot of it has to do with starting pitching. So we'll see there. And then Detroit, they're building, but I like their young pitching, but they're not ready yet either. And for us, we need Singer and Bubich and Keller to be strong at every start. We just lost Danny Duffy to the injured list, but I think our pitching is improving, but I certainly would not put it yet on the level of the Chicago White Sox.
Now, if I remember correctly, I had the earlier games, MLB The Show, when they were first started. Did you get paid? How much did you get paid to do those? Because I believe you were on the earlier announcing teams.
You mean
the video
what's
game?
That game called?
MLB the show.
Forget the
MLB the show.
Okay, I think I did it for about 5 years.
Yes, you did. Yep.
And
I had those games.
Yeah, well, it was because I was in the marketplace in Los Angeles, so I could just drive over.
Yep.
And I'd stay for a week, and they would pay me. I'm not going to reveal what they paid me because I just don't do that. I don't.
No, you're good. You're good on that, yeah.
Even with fellow broadcasters. But yeah, but the funny thing is, I never heard it.
Really?
I had kids come up to me and say,
"Wow,
you're the voice on that game." Well, I'm not a game guy because I don't play games. Like I said, I read books.
That's true. Yeah.
So when people say, "What's your favorite television show?" I go, "I don't have one," because every night, what am I doing? I'm at a ballpark. I'm broadcasting baseball.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not one of those guys that tape shows and watch them the next day during the afternoon. No, I'm always going. I'm a very routine-oriented guy. I get up early in the morning with my wife. We have prayer time. We have a cup of coffee together. We take our dog for a walk. I come back. I work out. I take a shower. I write. I've got to be disciplined. If I'm going to write books, I've got to be disciplined. Say, okay, this is a 2-hour window. I'm going to write. And then I'm going to go to my baseball stuff, and I'm going to prepare for that night's baseball game. And so I'm very routine-oriented, so I don't get into the habit of watching television shows. Like, if you ask me, what's your favorite television show, I have to say MLB TV.
There you go.
Because usually when I'm on the exercise bike, I'm watching MLB TV.
There you go.
Or Stephen Colbert. I like Stephen Colbert, and I like Seth Meyers too, so I do tape those, and when I'm on the stationary bike, I will watch them because I think they're funny.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, when I had those games, they chose you and Rex, and I forget who else joined you. I think it was Eric Carroll's. Eric Carroll's was on a couple of them too with you guys.
Well, I was on, I forget which one. I should know. But John Miller and Joe Morgan were the lead voices, and then Jeannie Zelasco and myself, we were like the studio, and we
2K,
take
yes,
it in
the 2K
between.
Games, yep.
Yeah, why 2K? Is that 2K games?
Yep, the 2K when they had the 2K franchise games. Yep, before they transferred over to the show.
And Rex did a game for another company, so. We both did games because we worked in Southern California, but that was a fun time.
It was.
But it was hard work. It was hard work. You'd be going in there, at 8:00 in the morning, and you'd be going the 3-2 pitch, the 3-1 pitch, the 2-2 pitch, the 2. They'd want every single situation. Ground ball left side, fielded by the shortstop. His throw is in time. It's like they wanted to get that detail. For every single hitter. Let's say it was, let's say it was Scott Pasednik. You'd talk about Scott's skills and say the pitch to Pasednik, and then they'd put in a little thing, ground ball short, the throw to second, they get the force out. And so you do that over and over and over, and it was rather rote, rather boring, but it was a good day. It was a good week pay.
And what do you remember about your time with TBS and working with Ron Darling?
Ron Darling, John Smoltz are two of my all-time favorites. I think they are two of the smartest pitchers I have ever worked with, and it was an absolute blast to work with them because I learned so much. And both of them look at baseball in a cerebral way. So when you are breaking down a ball game or breaking down a player, Ron and John can both pick up why things are working, why things aren't working, when a guy's getting tired, even before sometimes the pitching coach knows he's getting tired. So they were outstanding to work with, and two brilliant guys, and in my opinion, two of the best of all time.
Who would you say before you got into the broadcasting field? Who were your idols?
Well, growing up in Kansas City, Fred White, who was my mentor, who was a broadcaster for the Kansas City Royals, was my first real hero. But I was in an era where you could take that radio dial and go up and down the dial. I love Jack Buck of the St. Louis Cardinals. I think his son, Joe Buck, is fantastic. One of the most talented broadcasters I've ever heard.
He is.
Vince Scully for the Los Angeles Dodgers, in my opinion, is the greatest baseball announcer of all time. I love John Miller. I love Dwayne Kuiper. But a lot of these guys are my friends. And so it's hard to say one over the other. But as far as going back in time, obviously Fred White, Jack Buck, Vince Scully, were Bill King, who did the Golden State Warriors and the Oakland Raiders. Just terrific broadcasters. And so those are the guys I loved listening to growing up.
Out of all the guys that you mentioned that you haven't had a chance to work with, who would you want to work with out of the guys you just mentioned, like a Joe Buck or Tom Brenneman, Kevin Burkhardt?
It's usually I'm working with color analyst.
I know, right. But if you had the option, say if you were an analyst.
It's interesting because my second job in Topeka, Kansas, I did sports there, and our intern at the age of 18 was Kevin Harlan, and he was a freshman at KU. So Kevin and I became friends, and I remember putting him on television for the first time. He's 18 years old. He's doing a Sunday night show. He was flawless. Absolutely. And I go, this guy's going places, and he has. And then when I was in Cincinnati, my final year, a young man was graduating from Ohio University by the name of Tom Brenneman. And Marty and I were dear friends, and Marty said, hey, my son's graduating. Any way he can get work? Well, we talked to the boss, and obviously Tom is extremely talented. And I did the same thing. He had never done a television broadcast before on NBC affiliate like WLWT. So I stayed there and I helped him put the show together. And then I went home, and he's going to deliver the Sunday night show. And I was sitting with my wife, and Tom comes on, and here he is. First time he's ever been on TV. Flawless. Perfect. And I did the same thing, same comment I had with Kevin Harlan. I looked at my wife and I go, this guy's going places, and he's excellent. And Tom and I are still really good friends. Marty and I are good friends. So it's fun watching young men grow up. My mentor, as I said, was a guy by the name of Fred White. Fred did ESPN. He did K-State football and basketball and Kansas City Royals baseball. He took me under my wing, and every time I said thank you to Fred, he would say, no, Steve, just help someone else when you get a little older. And now that I'm in my 60s, young broadcasters are reaching out, and I'm always charmed and very appreciative, and I want to help them out. One of my proteges is a guy who's the broadcaster for the Milwaukee Brewers, a guy by the name of Jeff Levering. I met him when he was in college at Chapman University, when I was taking my daughter for a college, a look at college, where she eventually went. And I met Jeff at that time. He interned for us with the Angels. I helped him get a job, and then was able to watch him grow to AA, to AAA, and now to the major leagues. And I think he is an excellent broadcaster. So it's really fun now at the end of my career, helping other young people who want to get into our industry.
You know who Kevin Harlan reminds me of, now you mention his name? He kind of reminds me of Marv Albert. He kind of sounds almost exactly like him a little bit.
A little bit? Yep, a little bit, yeah. And those are two, I mean, one is already in the Hall of Fame, and Kevin likely will go into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
And Tom Brenneman, unfortunately, I hate to bring this up, because I know eventually I'm going to have him on. He said he would. It just sucks what happened to him with Fox. It just sucks. Like, just that one little air slip up in the air that we were in.
Yeah.
Man, hate to...
You know, I agree with you, number one, because he's my friend, and I know his heart. and I know he made a mistake, and I know he also paid for it, but I also ask the question, when will they forgive? Mm-hmm. And this is truly a great broadcaster, and I hope that he gets back in the game because he is an outstanding broadcaster. He has paid his dues. He made a mistake. He apologized for it. And I wish only the best and that he get back in the game because he's a terrific broadcaster. And I hope Fox rehires him.
I hope so too. I hate to see a talent like that go. I agree. I know he's got a podcast now. He's doing what he can, but yeah, he needs to get back into broadcasting. He really does, and hopefully somebody will give him that chance. So I gotta ask you now about this season. Like you said about the Royals, the young pitching and the young talent. Do you see them at least trying to make a run, or do you still see it just next year has them making their run?
No, I think, Byron, what you do is you try and win every single night. You don't break it up into increments. What you do is your increments are today, this at bat, this pitch, this moment. I really like the direction we're going. I think we have, like I said, not only a great general manager, but he's hired a terrific staff. We are not an organization like the Yankees or the Dodgers that can just buy talent left and right.
Right.
We have to scout well, we have to draft well, we have to develop well. And that's what we're doing right now. And I'm excited to see these young players like Nick Prado, one of our top first base products, Bobby Witt Jr., who is an awesome product, who's down in Double-A right now at the age of 20. Emmanuel Rivera, third baseman, I really like watching him play in spring training. And this great pitching. And I think the key is, and one of the beautiful things about broadcasting team sports, is when you see individuals leave their ego in the locker room and come together and play for each other. And I saw that in 14 and 15, and I'm seeing that with this group of young men. Are we a little short-handed now because we don't have Duffy, we don't have Dozier, we just got Mondesi back, Solera's not swinging the bat very well right now? Yeah, we're a little short-handed, but we're together. We're fighting, we're winning and losing together, and we're growing with that. And I think we're going to have some success in the future. Whether it's right now, I don't know. Like I said, I always make my evaluations based on pitching, and I still think the White Sox have better pitching than we do right now. But that's right now. I think we've got some guys in the way. Daniel Lynch, Jackson Kowar, Bubic and Singer are part of that mix, and this Asa Lacy, who right now is at Quad Cities, is going to be a dynamic pitcher as well. But and I think our manager Mike Matheny, in my opinion, is one of the great leaders, and he's bringing this group together. I think he's the perfect guy for this group of young men.
That's awesome. 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do you know how much longer I'll be?
Yeah, I got 2 more questions to ask you, and then we'll be good to go. I'll let you go because I know you're busy, just like I am. I've got kids. So
this is just one of those evenings where I want to spend some time with my wife.
I know. I do too. Yeah. I do too before we go to bed. So my last 2 questions to you are, have you been told yet? I know you are doing the games from you're doing the away games from home. Have you been told yet by the station if or when you guys might be able to travel again with the team?
Well, it all means the team has to get to 85%, and we're not at that threshold vaccinated. Our entire radio crew is vaccinated, and we are healthy as far as, we're fully vaccinated. Denny Matthews, Steve Stewart, Eric Guthrie, Ryan Lefevre, myself. I think Rex Hudler has both of his on the TV side. So we are all ready to go, but it has to be at 85% at the team. And then as soon as they're at 85%, remember that there's that 2-week window that you're quarantined before you can go out. But I remember I've had a lot of questions about how difficult it is, and it is a challenge to broadcast off of a television monitor when you can't see the lead a base runner's getting or where the defenders are playing. But that said, I also follow up and say, the world is suffering right now because of the coronavirus and the economy, how it has hit it. So I feel very, very grateful to even have a job. So the last thing I'm ever going to do is complain. Do I want to get back on the road? Yes, I do. I want to be there because I want to go down to the dugout. I want to talk to my friends. Right. I want to talk to the coaches. I want to talk to Mike Matheny. I want to talk to Cal Eldred. I want to talk to Terry Bradshaw. I want to talk to Brad Keller and Cam Gallagher and Salvador Perez, because you can get the best information to gather it and communicate it back to your audience. And the best way you can do that is to talk to the guys firsthand with them sitting in the dugout rather than a Zoom conference, which is a little more antiseptic to me.
I got one more question after this one, if you don't mind. It's a bonus. I want to know, I ask this to everybody I have on, in any sport I have on. I know it's early, and we're far away from it, but who you got in the World Series this year, and who you got winning it?
I have the team that is healthiest at the time. Healthiest and hottest. So when you look at the Dodgers and all the injuries they suffered, I mean, they got up to this great start because they were healthy. They fell into a little bit of a tailspin, and I think they lost like 12 out of 15 ball games, and it was because they had a lot of injuries, and hopefully they're going to get Cody Bellinger back. I like the Dodgers. I also like the Tampa Bay Rays, but they have to stay healthy. If you tell me that Tyler Glasnow gets injured and another one of their pitchers gets injured, or maybe they lose Randy Arozarena, well, that changes the mix. So I don't like to predict. It's like people go, hey, how many wins do you think the Royals have this year? I have no idea. Tell me who's healthy and who's not. Now, if they go the full season and they've got the same 5 starters and the same bullpen, then maybe I can tell you that. But right now we're missing Danny Duffy, Daniel Lynch. Had a struggle when he was up for a little while. I think he's going to fix things and get back to us. But I can't answer that question because I don't know who's going to be healthy. But you and I can both see that who are the best teams, and one team, if they stay healthy, can be a real force.
Right.
Is the Chicago White Sox. Right. I like their pitching, and when they get Luis Robert back, he's a great player. And I don't know if they're going to get Jimenez back this year, but I like the Sox a lot.
And now my final question to you before I let you go and spend time with your wife like I'm going to do with mine. What advice can you give for the people watching this and for future broadcasters like myself? What would you give to us to help us get into the field?
I would say don't be afraid of failure. I know a lot of young broadcasters that are afraid of going to a small market. I was not. I knew when I graduated from Kansas State that my best opportunity to move up was to start small, to gain experience. Don't be afraid of going to a Hastings, Nebraska, or to a Biloxi, Mississippi. If you love what you do, the money's going to follow you because you're going to work with passion. But what I do a lot of career days for colleges and high schools around the Kansas area and even in California. And I tell them, you can do 4 things if you're an independent contractor. You can be on time, you can be prepared, you can be easy to work with, and you can be enthusiastic. But if you're not on time, and I've worked 45 years, I am always on time. I'm on time even when I am sick. There have been times where I've been so sick where I've called the boss and I haven't gone in, but that's not very often. I keep myself in good shape. I eat the right foods and I do work out. But I also am prepared. And like I said, I have a routine, and I have a routine to prepare for the Minnesota Twins tomorrow. So I'm always prepared. And I'm a good teammate. And I don't care if you're in the insurance industry or if you're on a football team. If you can do those things, if you're on time, you're prepared, and you're a good teammate, they're going to employ you. bosses want people that they can count on. And the other thing, the fourth thing, is be enthusiastic. Just like Rex Hudler says, be a fountain, not a drain. Be positive, be optimistic, be up. People like being around optimistic, happy people. I love being around HUD. He puts a smile on my face every single day of the week. But my responsibility is to be on time, be prepared, be enthusiastic, and be easy to work with. So I think those are the four things that everyone needs to do to be successful in any line of work.
Awesome. Great advice. I gotta take that up. Gotta take that up on my own. Because that's what I tend to be, either on radio or whatever. Even if it's not play-by-play, just announcing something. And that's great advice. And I'm definitely going to use that advice in the future. That's for me personally. So thank you. I appreciate it. It was awesome. I thank you for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule. Now you got me interested in wanting your book to read. Like I said, I don't read much, but your books.
I've never seen a book.
Well, if your audience is interested, they can just go to Amazon, type in Steve Physioc or Steve Physioc books, and they'll come up, and you can read about them. You can read the reviews on them and make a decision if you want to get one or not.
Definitely.
It's my hobby.
Definitely. It's a great hobby to have, too. Just like the one you got now.
Exactly. Even as I get older, I'll still be able to do it.
That's right. But I do thank you. You're more than glad to come on anytime you want. I got your contact info. It was fun. I'd love to have you on again.
Thank you very much, Byron, for having me on, and I look forward to meeting your coffee house partner next time.
Definitely. But until then, you have a good night, and once I tag you, like we talked about, feel free to share it, please. I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, I will.
You have a good night, and have fun with your wife.
Thank you very much. We shall.
Yeah.
You have a great evening too with your wife.
Take care.
Blessings to you always.
Yep, same to you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, that concludes episode 29 with Coffee Time with Byron and Brett. Steve Physioc, awesome conversation, gave me some good advice.